Imagine you're an alien who arrives on planet Earth in 2019. You've never been there before, you have no idea what the history of this planet is, and you're just going to report back to your planet what you're seeing. You would probably report something like, there's one thing on this planet that covers the entire planet and seems to work really well and seems to have some kind of direction, meaning it knows where it's going, and this phenomenon is called the internet. And then for some strange reason, there are about 8 billion bodies connected to this thing called the internet, and they're all very confused and they have no idea where they're going. That would be a very likely report back from planet Earth in 2019, wouldn't it? You have to admit that. We're going towards 8 billion people on this planet soon being connected with each other. We're over 5 billion already. The internet itself is operating towards zero cost. It means that anybody can get Wi-Fi now on the planet for virtually no money at all. And all the functions you use when you go online, Google, Facebook, Flipkart, whatever it is, doesn't cost you a penny to use. And you can even have access to programming language and develop your own tools wherever you live on the planet. We have literally achieved a meritocracy on a global scale. Everybody is online. Some people in India are online like 2 to 3 hours a day. I live in Sweden, in northern Scandinavia, and they're online about 7 hours a day on average. Now we have 19-year-olds in that culture that go online about 11 hours a day, and my team are actually now following biohackers. There are people who can't even sleep without being online, who are literally now 24 hours a day online. We are online all the time. As a matter of fact, everything important in our lives now happens online. Capitalism is literally over because you all want to be informed before you make any decisions these days. And we have the luxury to have access to smartphones and laptops where we can check out absolutely everything before we make our decisions, before you make a purchase, before you decide to do anything, before you go on a date. You check the people, or you check the company, or you check the product that you're going to immerse yourself in a relationship with, so you know exactly who you're dealing with. That's called search. And since we're all searching when we go online, and we like to make informed decisions, that means that every transaction happening now between human beings is fundamentally digital and only later becomes a physical experience. That means we've moved into the cloud. We now live in the online world, and the physical world is becoming secondary to us. And it's a global phenomenon. But of course we are confused, because we're trained to think that the way we were brought up is something that always will exist. That's not true, though. History has changed before in dramatic ways, and we had a couple of paradigm shifts before that are on a par with the one that's happening right now. The first one was when we became humans to begin with. Homo sapiens is about 200,000 years old. And we haven't really changed over these 200,000 years. I know a lot of women have the ambition to give birth to babies that are smarter than they themselves are, but then they go out on a Friday night and meet a guy who looks handsome and he's kind of a fool, and they fall in love with him and they sleep with the wrong guy and have kids anyway. This practice has been going on now for 200,000 years. We might as well give it up. We're not going to improve on ourselves. We're going to be the same human beings. Our brains are no bigger than they were 200,000 years ago. And actually it comes to information processing, because we had to memorize everything when we were nomads. These days, information is outside of our own heads. Our brains are actually getting smaller and less used than they used to. Then we had another revolution called written language that arrived in our culture about 5,000 years ago, and it changed absolutely everything. Suddenly we settled down. We created farming. We raised cattle. We started taming animals and taming plants and taming nature the way we had tamed ourselves before. And because of that, we could go from a population of about 3 million, which was the maximum then, to 8 billion people on the planet now. That would have been impossible without written language. We call it civilization. Written language means that my information in my brain does not die with me. It means that I can write down what I go through in my life and pass it on to the next generation so they can build on my experience. That's what civilization is. Without written language, we'd never have civilization. The thing is, though, when we stop moving around, instead of focusing on literally physically moving, and we had permanent settlements in the river valleys and the mountains, especially here in India, Then our ideas took off instead. Our movement started towards the sky. And we realized we could build a completely different future for far more people than we ever thought was imaginable before that. Then the printing press came along, and it was first used massively in Europe, where I live now, in the 1450s. And the printing press eventually covered the entire planet in a messianic project called mass education. Because of the printing press, the cost of producing a book fell from around $160,000 in 1449 to about 30 cents 100 years later. Because once you print something, you don't have to handwrite it. You can create huge volumes of it at a far lower cost. And Europe reaped the benefits of that because Europe became the center of the planet. This marginal little cold continent suddenly became the center of the world. And Europe even conquered 3 other continents and populated them over the next 400 years. The success of Europe, which including the British Raj here in India, was simply down to one thing. The Europeans were ahead of the game when it came to using the printing press and teaching their kids to read, write, and count. India's finally caught up together with China in the last 50 years. Now the vast majority of Indians can read, write, and count from when they're kids. And they also have cell phones in their hands, which means they can jumpstart straight into the internet world. But they will take with them the values and the systemic thinking that came from a society where written language dominated, or where the printed language suddenly had become revolutionary. Now the whole game is changed all over again because the internet is here. So the way landowners and monarchy and church had to go and were replaced by capital and capitalism, and the people who owned stock in factories. And the monarchs were replaced by politicians and politics. And the old priesthood of religion who taught us the truth in churches once, or in mosques, or in temples, were replaced by academia. The same thing is going to happen all over again. We tend to think that politics must stay. We tend to think that Donald Trump is important. I predicted in the book 16 years before it happened that Americans are sooner or later going to pick a reality TV show host for president because they might as well pick a celebrity for president because it's now ironic. Politics no longer has the power. Academia is in a crisis. And old industry and capitalism are also now waning. The deflation and depression of the world economy can only be explained by one thing, and it's called technology. This brings me to what this is all about. It is all about the relationship between human beings and technology. We made tools, we made whole new technologies because of written language. We then escalated that into industrial scale production of technologies. And now we moved into digital. Digital means that we're now surrounded by technology everywhere. And the name for this whole new system is sensocracy. We're moving towards a sensocratic world where we connect human senses, our bodies and our own minds, directly with sensors of machines. But instead of talking about machine intelligence as something exterior to us, we should really talk about a symbiotic intelligence, a sort of intelligence that we can now develop where human beings and machines are operating together in an optimal way. Get ready for the wedding between man and machine. Not everybody's going to follow in that. The fact that we all have access to the internet doesn't mean that everybody will reap the benefits of a sensocracy. What does sensocracy mean? You know already when you pass through a passport control in 2019 and enter India. The camera looks at you, and in an instant second, it knows exactly which one of the 8 billion faces on the planet that belongs to you. That's sensocracy. We're now surrounding ourselves with sensors that are going to be directly connected with our bodies, with our skins, with our eyes, with our ears, with our hearts even. That's what algorithms are all about. We're collecting data about ourselves as human beings. And you know what? Not only are we collecting data about absolutely everything we do 24 hours a day, we're also storing this data forever, never to be forgotten, always to be processed. That's what sensocracy is. So what does that mean? It means that why would I go to a voting booth and vote every 4 years when I'm actually literally voting through my behavior every minute, every second of my life? It would be the easiest thing for machine intelligence to do, to tell us human beings what we want and actually where we're heading, and then administer it. That's why politics is dying. Politics is over. Sensocracy will kill it. Look at academia, massive crisis right now. Why? Well, any Uber driver can tell you that an Uber driver doesn't need a certificate from a university to be a great Uber driver. All the Uber driver needs to do is to drive a car that he owns himself and drive it well. And then once he has 3,000 people who's given him 5 stars driving Uber, if he's the right person at the right time, he will drive the next Uber ride. Academia was only there to certify that we learned something. I can sit on YouTube today and learn more than I've ever learned at listening to boring university professors. And I see it all around the world, especially young girls, have stopped listening to older men. I wonder why. Because they can learn everything they need to know on YouTube. All they need is somebody to certify it. And that happens with sensocracy because sensocracy will certify that you are the right person to do a specific purpose at a specific point in time, and therefore you'll be hired to do it and you'll be paid for it. Last but not least, there's old industry. You all know of capitalism. Well, what are they doing today? Well, they're trying to force us to stay within capitalism by throwing marketing and advertising at us like desperate. If you look at YouTube, the first 5 seconds you have to watch an ad. Did you know that out of 1,000 times that we experience that forced ad that's thrown at us, 994 times we aggressively press it to remove it after 5 seconds? We hate it. It's called spam. Advertising, marketing, it's all over. The whole game of forcing people to listen to your message is over because the algorithms will show us where we want to go and we will trust our friends to show us how to go there and what to do when we get there. That means the algorithms are going to kill advertising. And when advertising is dead, capitalism is over. We're moving towards an attentionless society where the only thing that has real value is whether you can accumulate and create attention between you and your friends. And the only way to do that is to deliver the highest and the best possible quality of what you do at all times. Thank you.